Welcome to the Motion Pictures. I am your nostalgic transatlantic host, the CineMan. And first up on CineMan Reviews is the home life of an SS officer, aka the zone of interest. Your typical oozy-toozy motion picture, one of those monotonous low-key shows that has some deep meaning behind it that only nerds can interpret, but naturally is a contender for Best Picture. Spoilers, but not too many of them, will be saved for the end, with proper warning. Based on a 2014 novel by Martin Amis, the title of the basis text was a code name for the surrounding civilian area of the Auschwitz concentration camp. But the levels of interest in this motion picture somewhat differ between the professionals and the casual talkie goers. Coming out on December 15th, 2023, there are no ticking time bombs featured in the manageably watchable 106 minutes. Just a very modest depiction of a military family as Dad, the real-life SS officer Lieutenant Colonel Rudolf Haas, balances workload, which we never see straight up, with his wife and kids. No images of the Holocaust atrocities are offered, only the occasional sounds and implications. You fly on the wall of a mother and kids blissfully ignorant, living under a patriarch's cover of a shameless evil. A normal nuclear unit, of course, including the conflict of an unwanted forced relocation by the military, as well as Haas struggles not to let his loved ones see any of the surrounding signs of his evil, including his mother-in-law. It is rated PG-13 for thematic material, some suggestive material, and smoking. And folks, if you're still trying to figure out what thematic material or elements are, you're just like me. First, we shall speak of the professional critics' evaluation. They say that the motion picture shows you that the families of the Nazi officers were intensely kept ignorant to the soldiers' genocidal job duties, whom you then get to understand to an emotional degree rather than a logical one. The motivation behind their indifference to the suffering they caused. Haas was a brainwashed tool fooled by Hitler's charismatic persuasions. He must have never had any moral intelligence and thus was a prime example of a mental breeding ground, allowing the next German Messiah to decide his morals for him. The critics give it a great 8.25 score out of 10. Now we shall move on to a less intellectual mind, the everyman, the casual man, the layman, one who doesn't go to the motion pictures to think hard. The everyman contrastingly sees less meaning in the monotonous home life on display. They say this would have been way better as a short rather than a feature. All that the filmmaker said in 106 minutes would have also been said, much less redundantly, in a 20 to 30 minute short. It's too subtle, low energy, sometimes boring, which might zone them out from fully following and understanding certain points of the plot, such as when Haas finds a body part nearby that somehow floated out of the camp close to home. But it was still such an informative, insightful picture, even for the bored casual fellow. So, it's still a thumbs up, a relaxing, worth watching 6.5. Now to the likes-dislikes section of the program. What was bad and good about it? Here you find out. For one like, there was an interestingly informative scene of a scientist explaining how to run the gas chambers to affect the most daily deaths. But that little like relates to the next section, dislikes. A negative for the motion picture was the lack of footage of the evil committed at the camps. The closest we get to it is the gas chamber scene, aforementioned, plus many sounds of horror, gunshots, screaming, and machine operation. But it was the director's choice, due to wanting the viewer to not become disturbed so much by the dark side of Haas' life, so we could just focus on how normal a man he is amongst his own. Was it the right decision? You could argue partially, but it affects a dry lack of versatility in the feature. Next we move to another likes-dislikes chapter of the review, the spoiler section. If you plan on seeing and fully experiencing the motion picture without disruption, you may skip over to the next discussion in the queue about my Academy Award grievance, rather than hear some points about the second half of the zone of interest. There's one like and dislike spoiler each. Small like about the motion picture is how much it can make you appreciate being not in the army. You get to see several struggles he has in the coexistence of his two lives. You become grateful firstly with not having to deal with death, killing, murder, genocide. Eventually Haas is forced to relocate due to a rank promotion, which his wife decides to not let affect her and the kids. She keeps them in Auschwitz while Haas moves out. Then while living on his own, he seeks alternate intimacy by cheating on his wife with a Jewish female prisoner. And now on to the dislike spoiler. The last scene features Haas gagging repeatedly. This was a confusing scene that could possibly be a show of remorse of his job. However, we don't end up receiving confirmation of such. It could be just a result of too much inhalation of the gas chemicals throughout his killing career at Auschwitz and other camps. Which of the two reasons is never revealed. But you wish it was. You wish. It was. You wonder. Thank you for joining us today for this transatlantic review of the Zone of Interest. Join us, if you please, on the following note about the Best International Feature Oscar. Cheerio, lad.